For 23 years, Elias Voss wandered from town to town, carrying a wooden cart filled with handcrafted candles. He never advertised, he never bargained. He simply appeared in places where grief seemed to linger. Most people thought he was an old eccentric. Those who bought one of his candles never spoke of what happened afterward, not because they were afraid, because no one would have believed them. On a rainy autumn evening, Elias arrived in the quiet mountain town of Briar's Crossing. Nearly every storefront was closed. The only light came from the cemetery overlooking the valley. A man knelt beside a small marble headstone. Fresh flowers lay beneath the inscription. Lily Harper, age 12, forever loved. The man hadn't noticed the old candlemaker standing nearby. "You visit every evening," Elias said gently. The father looked up with tired eyes. "I promised her I always would." "My name is Elias." "Thomas." They stood silently for a while. Finally, Elias reached into his cart and removed a single ivory candle unlike the others. Its wax shimmered faintly, even though no flame touched it. "This candle isn't for remembering." Thomas frowned. "What is it for?" "It lets grieving hearts see one last truth." Thomas gave a weary laugh. "If you're selling hope, I've already spent everything I had. I'm selling nothing." Elias placed the candle into Thomas's hands. "When the clock strikes midnight, light it. And whatever happens, do not extinguish the flame." Before Thomas could ask another question, the old man pulled his cart down the hill. By the time Thomas reached the road, the candlemaker was gone, vanished into the mist. That night, the house felt emptier than ever. Lily's room remained untouched. Her backpack still hung beside the bedroom door. A half-finished puzzle sat on the dining room table exactly where she'd left it. At 1 minute before midnight, Thomas placed the candle in the center of the living room. The first bell from the town clock echoed across the valley. He struck a match. The wick ignited instantly. The flame burned silver instead of gold. Then, the room grew impossibly cold. Every electric light flickered before going dark. The candle remained the only source of illumination. Thomas reached for his flashlight. The flames suddenly stretched 3 feet high. The walls began to move. Not the walls themselves, the shadows. His own shadow stepped away from him. The shadows cast by furniture slowly detached from the floor. Dark figures formed around the room like living silhouettes. Thomas stumbled backward. "What is this?" No one answered. Then one shadow became unmistakably familiar. A little girl, ponytail, small backpack. Lily. She wasn't truly there, only her shadow. The silent figures began reenacting the last afternoon of her life. 6 months earlier, Lily had been walking home from school along Pine Road. Everyone believed she had darted into traffic while chasing her dog. The driver never had time to stop. It had been ruled a tragic accident. Thomas had spent every day blaming himself. If only he'd picked her up. If only he'd left work earlier. If only... Now he watched the shadows tell a different story. Lily wasn't running. She was standing safely on the sidewalk. Then another shadow entered. A tall man wearing a baseball cap. Thomas frowned. He didn't recognize him. The stranger spoke to Lily. She shook her head. He pointed toward the road. She stepped backward. Then, he grabbed her backpack. She pulled away. The struggle lasted only seconds. The man shoved her. Hard. She stumbled backward into the street. Headlights, brakes, everything went black. Thomas felt his knees give way. No. His daughter hadn't caused the accident. Someone had forced her into it. The shadow replayed the moment again, this time more slowly. The silver flame burned brighter. As the stranger turned to run, moonlight illuminated something on his jacket. A distinctive embroidered patch, a soaring hawk clutching a wrench. Thomas recognized it immediately. It belonged to Hawkins' Garage, the town's oldest auto repair shop. His breath caught. No. The owner, Frank Hawkins, had been one of the first people to comfort him after Lily died. He had attended the funeral, helped carry the casket, brought meals to the family. He had cried with them. The candle wasn't finished. The shadow zoomed closer. The man's face became clear. It wasn't Frank. It was his nephew, Derek Hawkins. Thomas remembered him now. 20 years old, hot-tempered, recently fired from the garage. Lily had witnessed him stealing cash from the owner's office the week before. She had told her teacher she planned to tell Mr. Hawkins if Derek didn't confess. Thomas had dismissed it as playground gossip. The shadows dissolved into smoke. The room fell silent. Only the silver candle remained burning. Then a child's voice whispered softly behind him, "Daddy?" Thomas turned. No one stood there. But he felt something warm brush against his hand. Just as Lily used to do crossing the street, the candle extinguished itself. The next morning, Thomas walked directly to Sheriff Ellen Brooks. He expected disbelief. Instead, he simply told her one thing. "I know who pushed Lily." The sheriff reopened the case. Investigators discovered overlooked evidence, old security footage from a nearby gas station. A witness who had moved away but never knew the accident remained unsolved. Fragments of Lily's torn backpack still stored in evidence. New forensic testing revealed fibers from Derek's work jacket tangled in the straps. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Derek finally confessed. He never meant to kill her. He only wanted to stop her from exposing his theft. One shove had destroyed countless lives. Months later, justice had finally been served. But Thomas returned to the cemetery once more. He placed fresh flowers beneath Lily's headstone. Beside them rested the burned ivory candle. Its wax had completely disappeared. Only the wick remained. The wind stirred gently. "I know the truth now," Thomas whispered. "I'm still going to miss you every day." A familiar warmth touched his shoulder. Not cold, not frightening, comforting. He smiled through tears. "I love you too, sweetheart." When he turned to leave, he noticed fresh footprints leading away from the grave. They were tiny, barely the size of a 12-year-old girl's shoes. They stopped after only a few steps, as if someone had finally found the peace to walk into the morning light. No one in Briar's Crossing ever saw Elias Voss again. Yet every autumn, on the anniversary of Lily's passing, someone always found a single, handcrafted ivory candle resting quietly against her headstone. No one ever saw who left it. Some mysteries, the townspeople decided, weren't meant to be solved. They were simply meant to remind the grieving that while love cannot change the past, sometimes, if the heart is ready, it can illuminate one last truth hidden in the shadows. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.